Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock. Let's go over the market. Let's talk about what is happening in this market, what we can expect moving forward with Tesla. Tomorrow is the big day for Tesla, of course, with earnings. Netflix just reported their earnings down about 5-6% or so. So let's see, does this set a precedence for tech earnings or is Netflix an outlier? Let's find out. But tomorrow is the big day. I'll give you what I personally think can happen going into tomorrow. Earnings itself is a massive question mark. We'll go over more of that tomorrow as well. But yeah, if you enjoy, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. And of course, guys, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, updates, etc. Well, again, I do have a YouTube membership where I constantly share my thoughts, posts, updates every single day as the market is trading. So don't forget to check that out. That link is down below. All you have to do is click this link down here. You get access to that. And again, all my posts, $3 a month, Tesla updates, options flow, broader market updates as well. $5 includes NVDA, $7 includes everything else. You get the whole package. Tier 3 posts as well with members that I share. Essentially non-Tesla, non-NVIDIA stocks, private Discord access. We have a tier 3 chat room. I do chart requests every Sunday. We'd love to have you there. But jumping into it, Tesla down 1% on the day, closing at 442.5 per share, which again, shouldn't be too much of a surprise, right? Market's pretty much flat. But I mentioned how Tesla, today I actually would expect to be a red day for a couple of reasons. Number one, RSI, not the RSI, the SMI on the 1 hour. Remember yesterday I mentioned it was a little bit overextended. Let's cool it off a little bit, right? Let's cool it off. Let's kind of, retest these EMAs, potentially retest that 443-ish region down to 440, right? This is exactly what I mentioned is going to happen. So far, I see no worries, right? I see no issues. Now, if we start breaking, well below 440, and especially below like 437, 438, okay, maybe not as great. Maybe this pullback isn't just a pullback, right? You know what I mean? That would be a bit more problematic in terms of seeing some bullish momentum going into earnings. Because again, like I mentioned yesterday, I want to see a little bit of a pullback. I want to see a little bit of a cool off. I want to get us back into the EMAs. Everything is going according to plan, right? Now we need to see a reaction. And again, Tuesday is always, not always, but usually Tuesday is not the best, it's not the best day of the week for Tesla. It's usually one of the weaker days for Tesla. So again, all these factors, so far so good. Small little pullback today. Moving into tomorrow, I want to see this area. I do want to see this area. Again, I continue want to see it as support, 440, 443, worst case scenario down to 437/8, right? But essentially this is a zone right around here. It needs to be continued being treated as support. And from there, I want to see us loop back up. At the very least, I would like to see about 455 going into earnings. If we don't see at least 455 going into earnings, then, it's just a question mark going into earnings, obviously. But in terms of a more predictable thing, yeah, I would like to see a rally tomorrow going into earnings. I would like to see at least the mid 450s, ideally closer to 460. That is my current, at least expectation, right? So let's see. This obviously hinges on Tesla not losing this general vicinity, right? As pretty much the one that we're entering right here, right now. We close right in it, right? Kind of dipping our toes into the water, if you will. So important level to hold, but as long as it holds, I do expect us to do something like this going into earnings. And then of course, it's anyone's guess as to what actually happens on earnings day itself. And in terms of the reaction, which I'll go over more a little bit here very briefly. That's the 1 hour chart. The daily chart, right? What do we have going off of the daily chart here? Well, pretty much the same thing. I mean, again, today was only down 1%. We're not really doing much. We're kind of trading within yesterday's range. But you can see, MACD, despite today being a 1% red day, still making a higher low. So no, major concern there, right? We still have Tesla kind of getting closer to that 9 exponential moving average, right? We're still trying to continue treating this area that very visibly was a resistance area. Again, about 440, give or take a couple of dollars or so. We're very obviously trying to turn it back into supports. Again, earnings is a question mark. Nobody knows how it goes. But if I do see a pump tomorrow to about the mid 450s or higher, that would start giving me potential concerning signs of this being a potential bull trap and a sell the news type events, right? So let's see. But that's my current expectation. So far, I see no major concerns. Again, like I said, below about 440, give or take a couple of dollars is where I will start seeing some concerns, some short-term momentum being lost. And then it really just comes down to earnings, how it reacts, how the stock, decides to, positive or negative, right? Again, just because earnings is good, it doesn't mean the stock will react positively and vice versa. If earnings are bad, it doesn't mean the stock will react negatively. It's very important to distinguish the two, right? A lot of people get confused. Oh my God, the earnings are so bad. Why is the stock up? Or the earnings are so good. Why is the stock down? How much was priced in? How much expectations were there already built in, right? How close did it meet the actual expectations versus the street expectations of Wall Street? You have to understand these kind of things, right? So it's not always as simple as earnings beat equals up and earnings, miss equals down. It's not always that simple. But that's kind of what I'm looking for going into tomorrow. And then of course, after that, it's up to fate to see how it goes from there. So speaking of earnings, what is the current expectation for the market for Tesla? It seems like I'm not sure this is incorrect, but it seems like it dropped a little bit. So about 7-ish% move is expected for Tesla, which means that based on today's close off of today's price, it's expecting either close to about the low 470s or close to about $410 per share. So we'll say the very low 400s. That is currently what the market is pricing in, about a 7% movement on earnings. So let's see how that goes. Let's see what the reaction goes. I mean, I expect it to be not too bad, right? Elon obviously bought shares, right? So I expect Elon to come in swinging pretty aggressively. I don't think he's going to let this one go down too badly. But, again, to me, my overall perspective right now, the worst case scenario, my absolute worst case, like if just the reaction is just horrible and then we just continue selling off post earnings, it's not great. To me right now, the worst case reaction overall, not necessarily just tomorrow, but just overall plus the aftermath, 370 to 360. That's like my worst case scenario, which is, a decent drop from these levels, right? That would be a drop of about, 17%, which for Tesla isn't really that much. It's a very volatile stock. It can do that in like a day or two, honestly, for the most part. But that is what I'll be looking for moving forward for Tesla in terms of how we react to earnings, right? Again, this is a worst case scenario for me right now. About 17% is worst case scenario. That's my like bear case. My just default bear case scenario is we get a sell-off. What is going on? We get a sell-off from roughly around, let's just say today's closing price, about 10%. 10% is my kind of just bear case scenario. We come down to the 50 EMA, we come down to the gap fill. That's like my just bear case scenario. My bull case scenario is we actually break past these levels and we actually go up to about the 470s to 480, which is pretty much within the expected range, right? Which will be pretty much a retest of previous all-time highs up here. You can see that's kind of my regular bull case scenario, and my ultra bull case is I don't even have an ultra bull case. I don't know, somewhere well above that, obviously. But that's kind of how I see it right now. So let's see how that plays out. Let's see what kind of comes from the earnings tomorrow. I'm not going to try to predict how earnings is going to go. Nobody knows. I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. But looking at the weekly as well, really quickly, the question is, of course, well, do we just get another rejection by the green Fibonacci's? Each time we try passing above them, we just get smacked down over and over and over, and we end up closing the week, well below where we started. So is this just going to be another repeat of that? It's definitely worth mentioning, right? It's not completely out of the realm of possibility. So let's continue monitoring that and see how that plays out as well, guys. But all in all, yeah, that's kind of how I see going into tomorrow. Market's a little bit red after hours. Most likely, I assume, off of Netflix earnings, unless someone else reported that I'm not fully aware of. But I assume Netflix is kind of bringing the market down a little bit here, down about 6%, which isn't little. So worth mentioning. But yeah, let's see, guys. Let's see. Again, my kind of default bear case scenario, between very high 390s to about $410. This is my default bear case scenario, and default bull case scenario is somewhere up here. These are the two levels I would expect it to go to, one of those two. I don't know which one, but that's kind of what I expect. Very quickly, also the broader market SPY, you can see, right? I mentioned how I would like to see a little bit more strength today. We're not really getting that strength today, right? So there is still some concerns here I have. I wouldn't say I'm fully believing this rally just yet. I definitely think the bulls are very much coming in with a vengeance here. The bears are definitely throwing away a strong possibility that they had. But I wouldn't say the bears are out of the picture just yet. I wouldn't say the bulls have won just yet. To me, what I would like to see is I want to see extra strength. I want to see the sort of 673 to 674. I want to see bulls reclaim this. If bulls can reclaim that range, that is going to be very bullish. That to me is going to be bullish. It's a fresh all-time high. It convincingly gets back above this trend line. Right now, my main concern is the fact that we're not really getting above this trend line. Is this just another retest the same way these two candles were? That's kind of my main concern right now. And, something that I'm not fully ignoring, I guess you can say. So worth mentioning to see how this actually plays out. The VIX is falling, but you can see the orange box, guys, the orange line, it's stopping right at it. So if there's a spot for the VIX to bounce, it's arguably going into tomorrow. There is that potential so that we can't fully rule out. Now, if we see this smack back down under this orange line, again, about 17.5, and it's getting rejected, then the VIX is essentially being put back into jail, into timeout mode, and that should give the market room to rally higher. So overall, guys, that's kind of how I see things going and shaping up into tomorrow. So let's see how it goes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.